boots, that's all. We wanted that no Forest play. Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and my fellow Forest fanatic from across the Atlantic, Mr. Richard Spary. And joining us, we have Raf, the random pundit, and the Statman, Danscape. It was a night of nostalgia and celebration, and any thought of the game itself becoming a damp squib was comprehensively put to bed as Nottingham Forest dominated their Swedish opponents to run out 3-0 winners. In truth, it could and should have been more, as the gulf in class between the two clubs looked wider than it's ever been. Captain Fantastic Ryan Yates opened the scoring, and it was finished off in the second half by the Serbinator, Nikola Milenkovic. But it was the middle goal that many fans are feeling particularly happy with, as the hardworking Arnaud Kalimuendo notched his first goal for the club. Forest continue their resurgent form, and Super Cali scores a tap-in. Malmo are atrocious.
Milenkovic, it's going to fall here for Ryan Yates! And the Forest captain scores after 27 minutes. To McAtee to change the angle. Yates with a free header. Brilliant save. Kalimuendo! Well, that's his first ever Nottingham Forest goal after his summer move from Rennes. And then Yates, it's going to fall for Milenkovic! And Forest get a third goal. Kalimuendo! 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 Kalimuendo!
Hurrah! Huzzah! Kalimuendo scores. And Richard Spray called it on the last pod. He said the time was coming, and that man got on the score sheet. Richard Spray, how are you feeling about that one?
Yeah, I don't know how prophetic that is. I think it's just a law of averages, especially when you play a team like that, right? That he was starting, so you kind of figured it's probably the best opportunity he's going to get this season. But yeah, and then give Dan credit. He called the score 3-0. So I think we all tried to top him. Oh, did you say 4? Oh,
I went 4, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said 3.
I was
I thought you were 3 and I was 4 and you were 5.
It was you that said 3 then, Richard.
Oh, maybe it was. Okay. All right.
Credit to you.
There you go. Excellent. Yeah, this is, I mean, look, what a great seemingly cruise control performance from the boys, and, you know, feeling good about things moving forward as we approach this Brighton match, which we'll obviously get to in a minute. But yeah, I hope all is well, and had a great Thanksgiving here in the United States. It was a nice, relaxing day with a lot of food and some football, both American and international.
Amazing. Great to hear. Okay, right. We're going to look back on the Malmo game. We're going to look ahead to the Brighton game. So we're doing the squeezing of 2 into 1. So we're going to keep it moving quite quickly and get through a lot of stuff. What I would say is, if you're in the comments, please let us know you're here. We'll give you the shout outs as we go along. Quick hello to Ian, who's with us. Good to see you, Ian, over in Toronto. And Paul Morley says, happy Friday, fellas. Good to have you in the chat, Paul. Thanks for being with us. As is Brucey over in Texas, saying good morning, gents. The humble mystic Richard Spray, he references, of course, as well. One thing I will say as well, we are doing a competition giveaway. I have been giving details out in the last couple of episodes. I will give those details out again a bit later. So stay listening. And if you haven't heard about the competition shirt giveaway, you will get the information on that a bit later on. Also, I wanted to point out to you that the Garibaldi Bard has been back in business again. And with his latest offering, let's have a listen.
Memories of European victories. Forest boys are back again. Now I can't afford my rent, but it's just the price we pay. The city ground is calling me. Text, I'll be early to the wife. I'm on the biz with Sean Dyche.
Garibaldi Bard does it again, and he's a good friend of the show. So, wanted to feature his latest video and song. Go and check out the Garibaldi Bard on YouTube. All right. Dan and Raf are with us. I'll be over with you guys very, very shortly. But Richard Spray, I'm coming back to you because Murillo at left back. I'm sure that someone mentioned in the past, maybe we should try Murillo at left back. I can't think who that was, but we saw Murillo starting at left back. Give us your thoughts on that and the team. We saw a few changes as expected, and your general match thoughts, buddy.
Yeah, I'll give you credit, Greg. You were the originator, I think, of that at some point on Force Focus. Then it matriculated into support and conversion for myself and Paul Morley. So well done. And well done to Paul for pointing that out again recently. Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting sort of approach. I think it was a good experiment. I think you can see he can function in that way. You may make arguments that he didn't look completely natural at certain points, but he did what he does, right? He's a very difficult customer to try to work around. He's quick, he's agile, he's got that beautiful left foot. He inverted more probably than he did overlap in this particular match, but he certainly had some good, I think, synergy with Callum and with others that kind of drifted over that left, including Anderson. And, Sangari got to play a little bit deeper as well, which was good. But yeah, I thought he looked pretty good, considering we hadn't seen that previously, but it's something that we all felt. I mean, it could be possible. Certainly more natural than I think Murado going out there, so that's a good thing. But yeah, it gives you something in case you need coverage for future, in case there's an injury at some point in the future, you have that opportunity to kind of move him into that role. But yeah, he was. I mean, if you look at his heat map on SofaScore, he was kind of everywhere. It was a remarkable sort of dynamic that we probably didn't expect. We thought at certain times when the team sheet came out, it might be what they were going with, but this was the first time we actually saw it executed. So definitely kudos to him. He played well, and he did what Murillo does, right? Match in and match out. He's a pretty consistent guy. Hopefully he's not. There's not a serious injury there. I don't think it is. It looked like he walked off on his own power without a lot of disruption. So yeah, great job on his part.
What about you, Dan? I mean, the team sheet came out, and we were expecting Kalimuendo to start, and he did. McAtee came in, and no surprises there. And Zach Abbott got the run out of right back we were all calling for. You pretty happy with all that?
Yeah, overall happy. Surprised to see Murillo start at left back. I do remember a bit of shock on my face when he lined up at left back.
Don't you think that maybe he's a better fit at left back than Morato? I mean, I just think Morato and Milenkovic do play well together.
Yeah. No, he can be. It's more the running he'd have to do, I suppose. I was more thinking if you were kind of giving him the night off on the pitch, you wouldn't put him at left back. You'd let Morato bomb up and down more. That was the only bit that surprised me. He probably used up a bit more energy doing that role, but he did all right. I think he broke one of their players' ankles, didn't he, in the second half with one of his centre-back challenges out wide. So classic centre-back going to left-back performance. But overall, no, it was good. And it was good to see Zach Abbott given a full game to have a go and see what he's all about. And that was probably the most interesting bit of the night, if you like. The game itself was fairly predictable after the first 20 minutes once we got that first goal. So the highlights was really Yatesy getting his goal, which is always good to see. There's a bit of an extra cheer for that, and Zach's performance in the team, really. I think the others got a chance, and it proved to be good enough to obviously get the job done, and gives us a little bit more hope for them coming into the team in the future, I think.
Another 3-0 win, Raf. And I know you've only just kind of got back from being up there last night yourself. So how important was it to make a bit of a statement winning this competition, do you think?
Oh, no. Well, I think everyone knows my view is that I've got much more focus on the Europa League than I do on the league. Just don't get relegated, and I don't really care other than that. And the passage to the Champions League, which is what me and my buddy Marinakis are lockstep with, is exactly what the focus is. That's why he got Anjin anyway, was to focus on that. And I don't think that's really changed as to what we really want. So it's awesome. Goal difference is in a really now healthy place, as good as anyone else around us. And we can now actually think about, we've got 3 games that are easier on paper type of games. We played the 2 toughest ones and got 4 points from them. And so everything's looking up to maybe even gate crash the top 8 and auto qualification, and 2 less games that we need to play in a home and away, keep the squad fresher, and I'm all for it. It's really good news, and I'm loving this whole let's just score 3 goals every game. It's brilliant.
And long may it continue. We've talked extensively about the effect of Deitch and how he's got the feel-good factor back, and obviously the feel-good factor is only really back when you're winning games or at least competing in games, and so the turnaround has been significant from what we experienced under the previous Australian manager. But let's talk more about the game in general before we move on, because we have got Brighton to preview as well. Let's pick out, Richard, the main talking points. I mean, it was a very slow, tepid, pedestrian first 20 minutes, really. Not a great kind of energetic atmosphere. The club put a lot of effort into honouring the 1979 heroes. The coverage beforehand was really good online. The red carpet was out. You know, they really pushed the boat out, and Mr. Marinakis honoured his word that he'd pay tribute to both sets of players. And I thought that was a really, really important thing to do and a really good thing to do. But once the football started, it was a little bit tepid, as I say. Dominguez had an early header that went wide. The game needed a goal, and up steps Ryan Yates.
Yeah, and it was a heady play by Sangari too when he took that throw in. I think Dan prior to us jumping on was saying that, you know, there were some players really trying to encourage Abbott to be a little bit more aware of the moment to try to execute something, and you could see Sangari threw that ball right to Milenkovic immediately, and, you know, he played a pseudo winger role and attempted to cross the ball. Thankfully, a good ricochet back to Yatesy, which, I mean, give him credit, that was a good finish. You know, I mean, he really slotted it beautifully underneath the keeper, and I'm sure it was difficult for him to see. There was a lot of bodies in the way, but you know, just his positioning, I thought Yates was really good in the match yesterday. I mean, Raf talks about him, you know, being released frequently to do the box crashing work, and I think he definitely showed that yesterday, and he looked really, really confident too in some of his balls, to some of his like passes into certain like tight windows. There was one pass I think that led to the move that basically caused a nice little link up play from Kalimuendo and Callum back to Kalimuendo, which he didn't end up making that shot here. He shot it, but Elborg saved it nicely. But it was that play between Yatesy kind of giving it over to McAtee, which was, again, a very tight window to get it past the midfielder. Immediately, McAtee then plays like 1-2 with Kalimuendo, who then plays it to Callum, who plays it back to Kalimuendo. I mean, it was just a really nice passage of play, and Yatesy was right in the middle of that. So it was just nice to see him getting some plaudits too, because, as we all say, he's one of those unsung heroes that we have on the team. Clearly is the lifeblood of the team from a captaining standpoint, a leadership standpoint, setting the tone, setting the example. And you've talked about this. I think Dan just talked about this, the way that he gets people organized and how he makes sure to communicate very consistently and regularly with the players, and just encouraging guys when they've not done well and they've had, you know, moments that their head can possibly dip. Kalimuendo, for example, in his last start, he helped kind of buoy him up and buoy him up. Excuse me, I got to say it right. I was counseled not to say buoy, the American version there. Buoy him up. So yeah, it was just great to see him kind of being more involved in a lot of the match. It wasn't just side to side all the time. There was a little bit more progressive passing from Yatesy.
No, I think that this was a perfect game for him, as we mentioned in the preview. And there's going to be other perfect games. He's going to be a very important player in this season. He's not a starter really on a constant basis or consistent basis. There will be games that he starts in the Premier League as well. And he, you know, his work is really, really important on and off the pitch. Dan, I come to you to talk about Kalimuendo, because he's a player that kind of not really had the rub of the green so far. I wasn't overly impressed with him too much against Sturm Graz. I certainly wasn't impressed with him when he came off the bench against Real Betis away. But last night I thought he looked sharper. He looked a little bit fitter. He had a really good rasping shot that the keeper saved, and then he got his goal. What did you make of Kalimuendo last night?
Yeah, I think Dyche said about the fitness in one of the post-match comments on Kalimuendo, that part of the issue was just getting him fully fit from where he started, perhaps missing some of the preseason. So I think, yeah, probably did see that last night. I think we saw him do what he does, hanging on the shoulder of the last defender, lurking in the box. He got, before the goal, he got that chance that was a fairly decent save. Maybe could have been a bit more in the corner of the shot, but that was one of those where it just sort of fell to him in the box. And that's what you see on his highlights when we signed him, is in and around the box, the ball will fall and he'll get his shot into the corner, and, you know, he generally gets the target and that bit of a poacher. So I think I wouldn't say I was sat there thinking, wow, it's a totally different player that we've suddenly seen. I think he, like you say, was just a bit sharper. Obviously, the goal is kind of a tap in, which, you can't judge someone's performance on whether or not they get a tap in one game and they don't in another, because that's just kind of
still lively to be there for it, though, in the right place.
Yeah, but I think, that's
active,
it. He showed that against Swansea again in his, he had a couple of chances there where he's in the right place and it just didn't go his way. So I think it's good signs. It's a case of still where he fits in terms of him forcing his way into the team, right? I see him as a second striker. It's almost like you need him up front alongside a Jesus or a Awoniyi to get on the end of those little knockdowns and the little balls in the box. And, we don't tend to play that way. So it's still that challenge for him, whether he could actually lead the line as we will tend to need. But all he can do is, like you say, take the chances when they come his way in the game. And I think the spine of the team behind him was really strong. Yates and Sangari were purring together because they know each other now, and they were strong. And Morata and Milenkovic was strong. And then it was just those fringe players that were getting in and out of the game a bit. And obviously the goals brought a bit of confidence in the second half that we controlled it.
I thought that he was sharper, as I say, without being spectacular. Don't get me wrong. It was very, very encouraging and very nice to see all the players really kind of go to him when he scored, because I think the group togetherness is really important. Do you think, Dan, that maybe he's enhanced his credentials to maybe come off the bench in the Premier League now? Because I know he's been on the bench a couple of times, but I never really thought we'd see him. But do you think maybe now there's been enough evidence to say, well, actually, if we need to take Igor Jesus off, we can bring him in for maybe the last sort of 10 minutes or so? Would you see that happening?
Brutally, honestly, no. I don't think it's changed that, because if you're taking Jesus off, I think you still want that target man, and I'm not sure he will do that. Obviously, it depends on game state and all that. If you're seeing a game out, blah, blah, blah. I think what's probably enhanced his chance of getting into the side at some point is if Gibbs White is injured, because like I say, as the guy behind the striker, if you're chasing a game, he maybe actually has more chance with, say, Gibbs White out, because we've seen what Gibbs White's doing lately is arriving late in the box, getting on headers, that sort of thing. I think Kalimuendo will be really good at that, as opposed to being a target man. So that might be how he kind of gets his way into the side, I suppose, as another option to mix up there. So yeah, I struggled to see how he would be our target man, doing what Awoniyi and Jesus and Wood does still, to be honest.
It was McAtee's deep cross that Yates had a fine header. Their keeper made a great save to parry it for Kalimuendo to score. McAtee, Raf, comes in, and again, he's another player we want to see get going. What did you make of him last night?
It was really interesting. I had great seats that Elliot and Molly sorted. I was like 2 rows from the pitch, and I haven't been like that for a good while. And like seeing Murillo Cruyff turn like literally right in front of you and stuff is actually quite a lovely sight to behold. So kind of watched quite a lot of what he was doing close up. And I really feel for him, because you can just see his confidence is really low. And that first half, there were so many passes not under pressure that were just going to the wrong place. And you could see his head starting to drop. And I think something was done at half time to pick him up again. Either Dyche, Wone, Stone, the team. But he came out with a lot more zip, and he was really trying to run around and fix it. I still have a lot of faith, the fact that he will come good. It's just he is taking longer to come good than some of the others. But I'm not surprised, given how he probably played at Man City and trying to transition into how we want him to play here. But you can see glimpses yesterday that the quality is there. It's just going to take some time to unlock him, I think.
His position on the pitch for me is become a bit more puzzling, or his place in the team. I really think that he's a good player. I really think that we need to give him time, and a lot of the players time. I think a couple of weeks ago, I'd kind of, in a private conversation with Richard, was talking about Kalimuendo. I said, yeah, I think he could be a bit of a dud. And Richard was like, no, just give it some time. These guys need more time. And Richard was right to say that, and kind of reminded me that all these players need to just have time on the pitch and time over the next coming weeks to really kind of gel even more. So I'm not ready to write McAtee off at all. Let's go into the second half. We really should have had more goals, I think, Richard. I mean, Forest were dominating, but we did get the third goal with my man, Nikola Milenkovic. It looked like it could have been offside. I thought it was going to be the start of maybe another 3 or 4 goals coming in, but it was the last goal in the game. Just take us through that.
Yeah, again, Yatesy was involved in the process. It was a nice ball over to him to volley, basically. And then he obviously the keeper made a save, and it ricocheted off of, or did it? I think it actually may have ricocheted off of the defender, and then at Milenkovic, and then it came down, and there was some question as to whether there was a handball, I believe. So they obviously looked at that, but the way it fell was very favorable, obviously, and he was able to slot it in. But yeah, again, Ryan Yates being clearly the assist guy now, right? So he's going to be the one involved.
I tell you what was really funny about that goal, Rich, was that because we've had so many goals chalked off as such random crap recently, right?
Absolutely.
That when the goal went in, no one around all of us cheered.
Yeah.
We all looked at each other going, well, surely something's wrong there. Something's got to be wrong. And we looked up and then it was being checked, and we're like, oh, it's definitely being chalked off, And then it was given. And it's a state of just, do you know what? Everything is actually turning around. Our luck is turning around. We're scoring goals. The mojo is back. But yeah, it was a really strange one in the stands where just no one could believe that we were going to be allowed to have that goal.
Yeah, he's, surprisingly good in sort of semi-pressured moments. He's had a couple of goals last season as well, or critical goals. That start of that Manchester United, situation where he got the first goal against Man U. I think that was it. Was that at Old Trafford? I think it was. Trafford, yeah. And so that really set the tone right away as to how we were going to approach that match. And, it was shocking that he didn't get that header that fell right. That was a hell of a cross too. A hell of a free kick, a corner kick from Callum. The trajectory and the pace of that ball was beautiful. It was like precision. And so it's good to see that. But yeah, he held his composure, which is great for a guy who's a center back. To have that kind of propensity is amazing. But yeah, you're right, Raf. I just think it's PTSD from all the situations just recently, even with Jesus, which was clearly an error on the part of all involved in that from a refereeing standpoint. But so you kind of just sit there and go, okay, whatever. And then you wait for it. You just sort of don't even pay attention. And eventually they move on to the next passage of play. You're like, okay, cool. It stood, it's like, it's great to see it go in. You're excited, but it's just invariably you are a little bit jaded by just past experience. But yeah, it's great finish on his part, even though they may have thought it was questionable initially.
Sure. It was great to see Jimmy Sinclair coming off the bench to get some minutes, another young lad. And we finished the game with 3 academy graduates on the pitch in a European game, which I thought was absolutely magnificent. Zach Abbott, as we talked about, at right back, played the whole 90. And it was Captain Ryan Yates, I think, on the night that got the man of the match. And as Brucey points out in the comments, it was a goal, an assist, and a yellow card, which completed the Yatesy hat trick. Ryan Yates is a player who has divided opinion over the years. I put a couple of things on there. Paul Morley on X popped out this really good tweet last night that Ryan Yates has scored in the Carabao Cup, the Emirates Cup, the National League, Sky Bet League 2, League 1, the Championship, the Premier League, and now the Europa League. And of course, there's the great man, Brian Clough, in the picture saying, I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write him off. And I completely echo that as well. And then you can see the BBC Nottingham Sport tweeting about the funny stat that Ryan Yates has now scored a Forest goal on every day of the week, Monday through to Sunday. So really, really good plaudits for Ryan Yates. Really well deserved for him. And some other pictures I want to put up before we leave the Malmo game. Our very good friend Andrew Cove is back in the UK at the moment, and he was at the match last night. And he had his scarf up, and as everyone else did. And there's a lovely picture on the screen for those that can see it. For those that can't, it's just another fantastic image of the City ground. And Danscape, one of your pictures up as well. Wow. You were enjoying, cherishing the European night at the City ground last night, as was Dave Sanders. Another really good image of the Tifo, courtesy of Forza Garibaldi. He did another magnificent job, has to be said. And our good friend Chris Almer from the Forest All Over podcast and his small Dublin Forest gathering with some of his Forest pals as well. Seems like everyone was just enjoying the occasion. It's always good when you win, and it really does put us in a strong position once again to hopefully, I think, as Raffle, one of you just said, to gate crash the top 8. And I think that's really going to be our target now. Okay, all right, let's move away from the Malmo game and focus on Brighton. Before we do that, let me tell you about our Forest giveaway. We are giving away, courtesy of our sponsor, the Chief Trader, a Nottingham Forest shirt. On the recent episode, the one with Mark Turner, we're asking you to go back and have a check. Which player did Mark say from Forest history that he would want on the current team? That's the question you've got to answer. Answers are only to come to us via email to talkingredspod@gmail.com. We've had quite a few people get in touch already. We have had a few wrong answers. So if you think you're sure, I encourage you, go back to the episode, the one with Mark Turner. The question is, which player from Forest history did Mark say he would want on the current team? Go to the lightning round. That's where Richard's asking that question specifically. Email your answer, 1 entry per person, to talkingredspod@gmail.com and get yourself into the draw. Get yourself into the draw because you could win. You could win. What's that, Dan?
I was going to say, surely the answer is Hildeberto Pereira, because there's no other answer that you could possibly have for who you would want in any football team at any point in time, just to add some entertainment. Must be the one.
We did have a guest on the one with who had Hildeberto Pereira in his all-time team, because he said he was just one of those maverick players that brought a lot of joy. And I can kind of subscribe to that because he was mad. He was a mad player. But there you go. That's the competition. I will maybe mention it again on another pod, but it's going to be closing soon. We're closing it sort of just inside December, just so we can try and get the shirt to people for Christmas. All right. Let's move on and let's talk about Brighton coming up on Sunday, home at the City Ground again. We'll go straight into Brighton by doing this.
Send them back to East London! We send them back!
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
Viewers, listeners will know we do like to have a look at our opponents, and the man to take us through the scouting report is, of course, the Random Pundit.
Brilliant. No, thanks very much. And huge credit here to Rich, because I haven't really had very much time trying to get back down home from the game today. And so you can tell everything's a bit more glossy in this pack because he actually has skills better than my 5-year-old skills of putting PowerPoints together. But so this is what we've got. And actually, Brighton have done me a massive favour because if we have a look at their kind of last 3 games, of which were against Brentford, Palace and Leeds, they are unchanged as to their starting lineup, and they are going to be playing, you'd expect, a 4-2-3-1. You're going to have Verbruggen in goal. Duncan Van Hecke going to be there. Oh, actually, there we go. No, one little change. Dunk wasn't playing one of those games, and they had someone else. But if Dunk's fit, he'll be playing as that centre back. And then you're going to have Kadiloglu as the kind of the left full back. Probably Weaver as the right back, Baliba and Ayari in that midfield, Gomez on the left, Minter on the right, Ruter in the 10, and Welbeck up top, who is on fire for a 34-year-old at the moment. Brighton are sitting pretty up in 6th, out doing very, very well, upwardly mobile as well, because if we also have a look at the last 5 games, and that form table, Brighton sitting 4th in the form table, having bagged 10 points out of a possible 15, with only Villa, Chelsea and Arsenal being on better form than themselves, which is quite impressive. So if we have a look at kind of how do they really operate, how are they operating this year compared to maybe how we just remember them over the past couple of years. Well, a key thing for them is they haven't really had Mitoma for a while. So usually that kind of threat that's coming down the left is not as strong. However, Dan will talk about Gomez in a little bit. It's not gone per se, but it is that other part of the PSR kind of Newcastle solution. When we got Ando, they got Minter. And Minter has really, like Ando's come up trumps, Minter has really come up trumps for Brighton as well. And we can see that 39% of their attack comes down that right-hand side so far this season. And that has really accelerated of late because of Mitoma being out since October and Minter carrying, I would say, probably the majority of the threat that's coming down that right-hand side. But what's interesting, they might be sixth. I'm going to come on to this a little bit more. But it's not like they are on tremendous playing out their skin form and blowing teams away. If we think of Brighton of old, of doing that. So if we have a look at where their goals come from and where they're conceding goals, they've got 13 goals from open play, but they've conceded 11. So they're only kind of +2 from a goal difference from open play, but it's the main source of where they score goals and where they concede goals. They're pretty tight from their set pieces. They've only got and this is where my maths has totally failed me. It should say +3. So they are 3 better off in set pieces attacking versus defending. They've scored 4 from set pieces, but only let in 1. Total fail from me when I put +2 there. But yeah, so they are, they're not a massive threat from set pieces, but they are proficient at them. They're very good at the back from defending against set pieces. Quite a lot of our goals have come from set pieces, but we're beginning to see a little bit more fluidity of where our goals come from, which is quite good. What I really wanted to highlight, though, here is really interesting. If we think Brighton, and I think it's quite mixed as what your kind of general vibes without any knowledge are. They're not Bournemouth, but it's not a walk in the park playing them either. But we've actually done very, very well. Against them when they come to us, we have done well. But across the board, if we exclude, since we've come back up, the league games, if you ignore the first one we played in October when we came back in 22, when we were really trying to figure out who we were, ignore that one. But all of the rest of the league games that we have played against them, our XG has been larger than theirs in every game that we've played against them, home or away. So actually the matchup with them of our style generally against their style, I would say is just from that alone is quite favourable. But you can see the fact that they're being quite efficient of why they're in 6th at the moment. And I'm sure Dan will come on to talk to that in a minute. But other than Mitoma, they've got some players that are out, but they're none that are really their key kind of starting lineups, I would say. Now, if we quickly look at their games that they've had, they haven't lost very many. They've only lost 3. Okay, but it's not like they've suddenly put together loads of wins on the bounce. And their home form is definitely a lot better than their away form. If we have a look at their away form, it started with Everton, lost 2-0. Bournemouth, lost 2-1. Chelsea, they did win 3-1, but Chelsea had 10 men for a chunk of that game. So it doesn't really count. Then Wolves drew, which is shocking. And then Man U lost against them. And then Palace, this is quite credible, I guess. They went to Palace and they got a draw. But Palace are a bit wobbly, to be fair to them at the moment, after their amazing run that they had at the beginning of the season. So away from home, they're no massive shakes. And again, another indicator of how they've kind of scraped their way to 6th at the moment. We look on SofaScore for like players that over the Premier League season have got 7 or above as an average. Van Hecke is the only player that is above a 7, a 7.33, but no one else is above a 7. Minter, he's a 6.98, and the goalkeeper's a 6.98 as well. And those 3 are kind of their top players. Interestingly, just quickly looking at us, and from my previews, it's only Ben Elliott Anderson that's been a 7. We're now getting better. Murillo's now nudged above an average of a 7, and Nico's getting very close to it as well. So actually, we've got 2 slightly more form players than they do, which is an interesting, very telling of where we are in the league and the perception of that. But who's super important from them? I kind of alluded to Welbeck before. He has bagged 7 goals already so far this season. And when you look at where the next goal scorers are coming from, Gomez, who Dan's probably going to talk about, is the only other one who has got more than 1 goal, and he's got 2. Minter's bagged 1 goal, but he is the assist merchant with 4 assists with his 1 goal. And then you've got a bit of Ruta behind who's got 2 assists, and Weaver again down that right-hand side with 2 assists as well. But they have got 12 different goal scorers in the league so far this season. So goals are potentially coming from all around the pitch. But the real focus is actually handling Welbeck and handling Minter. And it's kind of half the problem solved as far as I'm concerned. But Dan will tell you more about that. So very quickly, last, a bit of the old heat mappage. So what we've got is you can see Minter, who is really a dominant force, and how much ball he gets from how much red there is, hugging that entire right-hand side and then cutting into that whole right-hand side of the opposition penalty box. You look at Welbeck, he doesn't actually touch the ball as much. So again, as a striker, he's not getting as much of the ball, and he is touching the ball absolutely everywhere in the opposition half. And he is tracking back to do work like we would see with Wood, with Jesus as well. In their own half, he's getting touches the ball in the own half as well. So he is working. He's an all-round working striker. But I think he is being quite efficient with the chances that are coming his way. And Belieber, of which Dan's going to come on to talk about, and actually even the manager in the last press conference has talked about Belieber is not as good as he has been recently. And he actually got pulled, I think, at half-time last game. And it's about managing him. But I'm pretty sure he still will start. But you can see the fact that in that middle of the pitch, he's absolutely everywhere. And a lot of what that very good phrase that I use the whole time is that engine room. He's sitting in that engine room with their midfield too, that are making a lot of what happens. And that, I believe, is it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. A really good, insightful look at our opponents coming to the City Ground on Sunday, Brighton and Hove Albion.
This episode of Talking Reds is brought to you by The Cheese Trader. If you love proper cheese and you love Nottingham Forest, then this is the place for you. From rich, creamy blues to powerful charcoal cheddar, The Cheese Trader has the flavour to match every moment of the season. Whether you're celebrating a big win or drowning your sorrows after a tough loss, use the code Talking Reds for 10% off every order. The Cheese Trader on Grape Lane in York. Owned by Forest fan Stu Freestoke. Proper cheese, proper passion. Find them online today and join the cheese revolution.
Enter the competition. It's promoted by us and supported by the Cheese Trader. All the details for him are in the bio.
I'm a Statman. Moraes fazendo som, fazendo som. Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som, fazendo som. E Pedrinha Moraes fazendo som.
Just before I forget to do so, I'm going to say thank you very much to Mark Wayway NFFC as ever with a £2 in the pot. He says Zach Abbott looks like he'll be a top player. We certainly agree with you there, Mark. Thank you again for your kind donation. Okay, we're zipping through it, and here comes Danscape with the stats.
Thank you very much. I'll continue on from where Raf left off a bit on Brighton's players quickly first. Just in defence, I suppose what one player to keep an eye on is Van Heck or Van Hecker, depending on how you like to pronounce that one. But he's actually kind of their focal point from defence at the minute. He's scoring very highly as that kind of quarterback, centre-back, which Murillo does for us. So I think that used to be more what Dunk would do, a bit of those long balls. But he's kind of key. He's got quite a few shot-creating actions and things to his name. So he's probably the guy they'll try and get on the ball a bit. But what I would also say is their wing-backs, they score okay, but they're not like outstanding like we sometimes worry about with other teams as well. Their fullbacks, wing-backs on these sort of scores are like 7 to 8 out of 10s. Obviously, we've got like Nico Williams, who's a 9 out of 10. And normally in a team, there's one that's like a 9 out of 10. So they're not as strong in that area of defence, but they are very direct. That's one thing that stands out. There's like a team that plays tippy-tappy at times, but they also sometimes go direct from the back and catch you out. And they score pretty high on the S-Housery as well in defence, which is one to keep an eye on. That's a Dunk for you. As was mentioned in the comments with his chat back to the referees. In terms of midfield, yeah, Diogo Gomez sort of stands out as the kind of... He rates highly in this all-action role in midfield. So although he plays out wide, he actually plays in a similar way to Elliot Anderson in that he's actually box to box and he's scoring quite highly for that. Now, he's not played a load of minutes, but his dueling and his pressing ability is really high. And he's proven he's quite a good finisher at times in games as well. So he's not a bad replacement for Mitoma being out of action. The rest of their midfield, though, doesn't score that highly. Again, Belieber's certainly dropped off. He was like a 9.5 destroyer last season, but he's only a 7.5 this season. So whether or not he's been distracted a bit by the interest from Man United and that, who knows? I still think he's a good player. He's only 21, so there's still plenty of room to go there. He could still turn up on the day. And then up front is where the action is for Brighton, where their success has been this season. So Minter is a 9.9 out of 10 wide forward for me on these scores, which is kind of where Ilanga would have been pushing last season for us. So that real impact kind of wide forward player. He's doing well, like scoring really highly in kind of chance creation, dribbling, movement. So he's proven to be a good buy for them. But then Danny Welbeck is the perfect partner for him in that he's like a 9.4 out of 10 poacher, right? So he's Chris Wood from last season. So that partnership between them is certainly something that's helped them out, as it did with us with Ilanga and Wood last season. So Welbeck continues to score very highly for his finishing and his smarts without, his age isn't sort of playing a part in that side of his game. So certainly got big threats up front.
Dan, I just had a question on that last slide. So it seems odd that this Mitoma's ball carrying is that seems pretty average to slightly, below average. Is that just a function of him just not being, I think, completely fit this season? Because I would imagine that score would be a lot higher, at least from what I've seen on, from an eye test standpoint. Because you look at obviously how Minta's scoring at 8.9, that just seems really low. And it looked like Gomez's ball carrying score wasn't that high either.
Yeah, I honestly can't tell because I've not seen him play this season. But clearly he hasn't done what the numbers, that he has in the previous seasons, I guess, for some reason or other. I mean, again, he's an interesting one in that they turned down a massive bid for him, didn't they, last season?
Yeah.
Since then, he's not quite had the same impact, and obviously,
right.
He was only fit. He's only really fit for August, September, and I don't. Looking at that, if I remember, they didn't have the most sterling start to the season. They've definitely kind of grown into the season, and that might be kind of how it's linked a bit to the stats that everyone else that's been playing for the last 2 months has got a massive boost.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just this is like season rankings for various stats, like XG for and against and goals less XG for finishing and that kind of stuff. So the blue highlight is Brighton, and you'll see most of the blue bars are either in the top 6 or in the top 10. There's only a couple where they dip down in terms of style. And you'll see that Forest actually, we don't have that many in the bottom 6. They're the white bars there, right? So we are mid-table for a lot of these things. But a couple of areas where Brighton stand out is expected goals against, right? Fourth best defence in the league, effectively. That's the big difference for them this season in terms of where they are versus perhaps where they've been last season, where they dropped off a little bit. And also, what was the other one? I suppose it was the fact they're not this strange team, in that the percentage of passes they make quite long is quite low down, but they do it at the right times. I still think there's a directness that you notice that gets in behind teams. And you'll see they are a high pressing team in the far right hand column. Like their average tackle position is only just behind Arsenal as the top one, above the likes of Bournemouth. So they still have that high press to them. One thing I would say for us, if you look at ours, and I'll come on to this later, is on the percentage of passes long, third from the right there, we rank 11th overall, right? We'll come back to that in a bit, because when I look at the last 4 games, there's been a big change in that in terms of our style of play. And just to flag, so although Brighton are in the top 6 and they seem to have had a good start, they're actually 5 points worse off this season compared to last season in the same games, from assuming my spreadsheet's right. So although they've had a good start, they've actually scored 3 goals less, conceded 2 goals more, and they're 5 points worse off than playing the same fixtures last season. So it's not all, all roses, if you like. And they also are playing a little bit more direct. You'll see some of the average pass distance and the percentage passes long have just gone up a little bit this season, and they're doing more box defending. They're facing more aerials, so they're sort of playing a little tiny bit more like we did last season. But yeah, again, it's their defense, it's the XG against that's the big plus for them, as opposed to being like Raf touched on. They're not flying as a team, but they are defending better basically and getting the results when they need them. yeah, a quick look at Dashball, just changing the tone slightly. So this is the same chart again, but this is purely for the last 4 games. And overall, you'll see that all the white bars for Forest have shifted up generally, right, which is obviously a good sign. So form-wise, we'd be 7th in the league over the last four games. Brighton would be 4th. In terms of XG, we'd be 7th. In terms of XG against, we'd be 8th. In terms of our goals less XG, which is one where we scored quite low on the last one in the bottom 6, we would now be 8th, right? So we're taking our chances. And most of the others have moved up, but the most interesting one is that percentage of passes long on the third from the right, which, like I said before, we were kind of 11th as a season average. We were 11th, but we have now played the most percentage of long balls of any team in these last 4 games since Sean Dyche has come in the Premier League. And I suppose that is us getting back to what we would have been up there last season as well. We'd have probably finished like 2nd or 3rd. And on the second to right column is that last ditch defensive actions, right? So that's like blocks around the box and that kind of thing. And again, we've jumped back up to 3rd. And this season at one point we were 20th probably for that. And last season we'd have been 1st for that. And you'll notice that West Ham in the last 4 games with Nuno are 1st for that, right? So we are back to kind of definitely the numbers are showing that we're back where we were last season in terms of being a bit deeper, playing a bit longer. And it's obviously working because we are taking our chances again. And this sort of just re-emphasizes that from our last 4 games against our previous 4 games. So obviously, look, points, we're much better off. It's all green, more goals, less conceded, and so on. But when you look at touches, like we're having less, like 30% less touches in the attacking third, less touches in the penalty area. Our average pass distance is longer, percentage of passes longer, and we're doing more of that box defending. We're facing more balls in the air, and so on. So it's like, I feel like we are seeing that return that we've wanted, perhaps, to a bit of familiarity, and it's showing through in the numbers, albeit only 4 games so far.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Danscape. Okay, we have just about enough time to go through the teams that we have selected for this one. So I'll add them to the stage, and Richard, take it away.
Yeah, so I'll go from back to front per usual, just read it out so everyone knows, and I'll kind of give a justification from my perspective as to why you go with this lineup. So Sells in goal, a back 4 of Savona, Milenkovic, Murillo, and Williams, and this is a 4-2-3-1 per usual. Then you've got Yates and Sangari in the middle. You've got Hutchinson out wide on the right-hand side, and then Anderson in sort of a 10 position. I'm sure it could be more of a flat 3 potentially, since you've got Jesus and as a striker, and then you've got Hudson-Odoi on the left. So to Raf's point about when you look at where they're giving up goals, Brighton, they're giving up goals through open play. So I like the idea of having Yates and Sangari because Dan touched on it. There's a certain chemistry that's built up between those two. You have Yatesy to kind of stymie some of their more effective players in the middle. That you're going to want that kind of individual who kind of gets into the mind of the opposing players and provides a little bit of box crashing, as we saw, but can do the defensive work. Can be a bit of a threat on the set pieces and can be a bit of a good sort of last ditch effort to try to defend set pieces because of his height and his ability in the air. Sangari, of course, doing what he's been doing, which is getting those interceptions, creating difficulties working through channels, and he's obviously got good vision. He can find a pass as well. And like I said last night, I was impressed by some of the moments just from a football IQ standpoint that I saw from him. So it's really good to see, and just having a run of games where he's healthy has been incredible. But I kind of feel like, man, Dyche he touched on this the other day against Liverpool. I just get this impression that he's due for a start, for an opportunity to do that because of his play off the bench. I can see why it would be of value to keep him on the bench, but based off of the opportunity that we have to play a little bit more front foot from the beginning, we are at home. We're coming off of a great game. We don't want to be too overzealous, given the fact that we're coming off a win against Liverpool away and then a win against Malmo, because of course it was Malmo, so that's not much to go off of. But I am kind of curious to see what he can do from a starting standpoint if he comes out the blocks with the same energy, and putting him opposite Callum Hudson-Odoi makes it very difficult, because those wide areas are going to be difficult for fullbacks because both of them are so adept on the ball football. And so they have so much industry and creativity. And then you add even more creativity, but also the stoutness defensively and that capacity to duel, which is Elliot Anderson. And I think he's, shown this season his ability to find open players, to play those through balls has improved from the previous season. And of course, our man Jesus. So I think is definitely, I'll predict something in the my prediction on the score, but I think he's been really good. I think he shows great physicality and great movement, and I just think he's been a great addition to the club. He's done more than I expected him to do, to be honest with you. So that's my team: Sells, Savona, Milenkovic, Murillo, Williams, Yates, Sangari, Hutchinson, Anderson, Hudson-Odoi, and Igor Jesus.
Okay, brilliant. We'll have a bit of a chat about everything once we've seen everybody's team. Danscape, you're up next.
Okay, so yeah, the same back five, the standard back five at the minute for the Premier League. And then in midfield, I think if we're assuming that Gibbs White's out, I think I am shuffling Anderson forward into that number 10. I think back to last season when he had to do it, and he did it well, and it was a good run of games for us against Palace and Leicester. So I think he's the prime person to fill in that spot. And then we've got one area of the pitch where we do have options, at least at the minute, is between Sangare, Dominguez, and Yates for those other two deeper midfield spots. So I think I would go Dominguez and Sangare in this game. I think we need that quick technical ability with Brighton pressing high, and then Ndoi on the right to offer that sort of relationship with Savona that's been building up for me, and then Hudson-Odoi on the other side, who showed last night a good bit of return to form. Probably should have had a goal with the one that hit the bar. So I think he comes back in to give it. We saw last time when we beat Brighton at the City Ground, they'll push on, but if you can switch the ball quickly out wide, you can really get behind their fullbacks, and they haven't got the most pace in defence. So I think you have got to go strong with your wingers, and then obviously Igor Jesus up front to try and continue what he's been doing lately.
Okay, thank you very much. Raf, over to you.
Yeah, so I think I'm actually going to change mine to unchanged, just because there's this chap called Jack Netting who seems to have popped up quite a lot, and I get really annoyed by journalists that make stuff up, but he seems to have got a lot right and seems to have access to the training ground quite a lot. So Morgan, I think, is good, and he's absolutely fine. It was a bad back, waking up kind of sort of injury, but settling down and should be in contention to play. And I think if he can do an unchanged side, I think he probably will. On Callum, he played all 90 and he played all over the spot, all over the place. And he's just come back. So I don't know if he'd actually start him. And I think the players that he was going to start, he pulled early, like Dominguez and Sangar. Like the players to start that are the usual starting 11 got pulled for that particular purpose. So I actually think it's going to be unchanged. Murillo, unless something really randomly comes up, should be playing as well. So there shouldn't be really any change to the injury situation. One thing about Wood, by the way, is that I do think it's a while before he's back. It's his knee. They can't rush it, and he still can't do high impact training on his knee. So that to me means the fact that, yeah, he's kind of close, but he's still got his fitness back. Backwell was a hamstring injury. It's fixed, but he now needs to get to the level of fitness that Dyche was doing for those 2 weeks with everyone in the international break for him to become viable. But at least he's on the way back now as well. But sorry, that's a bit round the houses, a bit of injury news and stuff. But I think it's unchanged, even though that isn't what's there.
Okay, thank you. My team, I kind of agree with you. I've put Hudson-Odoi in on the left-hand side. Same back five, Sangare, Anderson, Gibbs White in the 10, Ndoi, Igor Jesus. But I actually agree with you, Raf. On closer thought, I think it's going to be unchanged from Liverpool. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And Dominguez is really an important player. I think now that we're seeing him play more and more, he was really important last season and he will be again this season. It's good to hear that Gibbs White should be fit to play. If he's not, I think I would probably go with Danscape's suggestion of an Anderson moving into a 10 and Sangare, Dominguez playing in the two midfield roles. And if Murillo doesn't make it, I think he will. But if he doesn't, then I'm more and more confident and happy about Morato. I think he's having a good season. I think when he plays, him and Milenkovic have got a really good understanding together as well. So I'm happy if he comes in. Obviously, I want Murillo to start. He is first choice. Igor Jesus up top starts. I asked a question earlier regarding Kalimuendo to Danscape about is it a possibility that he might now be seen as someone who could come off the bench? My own feeling is that I think maybe he's shown enough that, you know, if you want to bring Igor Jesus off with 10 minutes to go, maybe a Kalimuendo could come on. I'm not suggesting that he's ready to start yet. I think one or two maybe thinking that he would be good to come in behind an Igor Jesus or in front of an Igor Jesus to work in tandem. I'm not quite sure ready to go to like a 4-4-2 just yet. But I was quite happy with what I saw from Kalimuendo last night. Has anybody else from last night, guys, staked a claim for Sunday? Maybe not so much in the starting slot, but certainly to get some action off the bench, Raf.
But so very quickly, Greg, just on the no changes, as we've talked about, and kind of bringing together what we've all talked about, what Dan talked about, which is the kind of Alanga Wood formation and how we did really well last season. Thinking about all this, if Dominguez is on that our left, their right, and we've got Nico, if we can stop that right-hand side of Wither and Minter doing what they're doing and feeding Welbeck, then that's got to be 75% of the job of playing them at the moment. So it makes even more sense for Dominguez not to be dropped and to continue to play on that left-hand side to do that job. And we can then zhuzh it up in 65 minutes and get Callum on, get Hutchison on, and literally just throw the kitchen sink at them if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, Richard talked about Hutchinson as a starting. I don't think I'm ready to start him yet. I think Hutch still needs to continue doing what he's been doing in terms of making an impact from the bench. And my gut feeling is, and I don't know, my gut feeling is that that's how the coaches will use him just for the moment. He's going to be knocking on the door really hard for a start, but I still think that he needs to maybe produce again off the bench before he gets that. But my question I was asking was has anybody kind of made a stake for a claim to get some minutes out of the kind of like more fringe players? I mean, Dan Ndoye was on the bench last night. We expect him to start. Kalimuendo we've talked about. McAtee doesn't seem like he's done enough. Anybody want to chip in with anybody?
No.
Or
I mean,
Abbott's the team picking itself still.
I think it is. I mean, it's where, you know, Abbott versus Savona is probably the only one where you could look at it and say they're not a million miles apart. I think Savona showed a little bit more calmness in possession. I think I noticed last night on that side of the pitch when Abbott had the ball, he was often early on anyway. He was playing it safe, and the players were a little bit frustrated with him in a good way to sort of say, you know, we can take the game to these guys and we can play forward a bit. And he was the spare man who was getting on the end of the final ball to cross in or have a shot. You know, so he was growing into the game, but I don't see him being a million miles away from Savona. I almost think defensively he might be better than Savona. You know, he's got the physique as well, and he's got a physique of an older player, but he's still, you can tell, got that little bit of youth about the way he plays when he's on the ball. So that's probably the closest one for me. I don't think if Savona suddenly turned up injured, I don't think we'd see a massive drop off with Abbott coming in.
Okay. Yeah, I think Kalimuendo as well. I think he's now that, with Wood still being a little bit of away, I don't think it's Taiwo that now comes on. I think it is Kalimuendo that now comes on as that first striking substitute.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was getting at. Is he now that? I mean, I think he could be.
I think so, and I think it's because he's more of the long-term solution for us. It's not Taiwo. So we want to be giving him minutes, getting him more goals and getting more confidence into him. So it'd be the logical play to me. And this game, he matches up well. Like, as Dan was saying, their defenders not fast, right? They're not really speedy. And so if we get Kalimuendo on their collar, literally, and then running through, that's actually quite dangerous. And I think he'd be a good matchup against any form of centre-backs that are not pacey.
Okay. I'm on school pickup, so I've got to go in about 2 minutes' time to go and get my son, or I'll get a phone call. So just enough time to go around the group to get some score predictions. Danscape.
I'll be honest, I actually had us down for a defeat on my last update of the prediction league. So I don't know. It could really go either way this game. We could beat them 3 or 4-0 on the counter-attack, or we could lose it 2 or 3-0 potentially if they have a really good day. I'm really torn. So I think I'm feeling like we're in a good vein of form. So we win it 3-1, counter-attacking goals.
Lovely. Raf?
Very quickly, but very, very importantly, I just had a bit of a weird look. I'd say weird last week, terrible last week. I lost my best mate, very, very surprisingly, on Friday. Like really tragically, really so. And since then, the football gods have been doing everything they possibly can to cheer me up. So that was Friday. Saturday was Liverpool 3-0. My mate was a big Chelsea fan, and he'd take me to games the whole time. So I went as tribute to him, and I went to go see Chelsea hand Barcelona, their ass, and win 3-0. Then go up and watch the Malmo game, and it's been 3-0. So I'm going, this is going to be 3-0 to us.
That'd be good.
Well, we are really sorry for your loss. We knew about that. And please.
Yeah, and it's very good of you guys not to mention it on here. But I just thought, you know what?
Oh, no, we wouldn't. We wouldn't. But, you know, we're with you and supporting you. And yeah, 3-0 sounds good. Sounds really good. Richard.
I'm going to go 2-0. I want to keep another clean sheet, right? We've got a little bit of run of clean sheets along with those 3 goals, but so I think we can do it again. And so, yeah, I'm going 2-0, but real quick, with permission from him, Andrew Cove, a great friend of ours, and he comes on the podcast, runs an NFFC NA group, just recently lost his dad. So not to get this on a downer towards the end of the pod, you know, with some tragedy that's happened, but I'm just grateful for him. And he's a great guy and a great ambassador for Forest in the United States, but his dad was a massive fan of Forest. And so it was a great bond that they had over being together at Forest matches. So it's an unfortunate loss for Andrew and his family. So our hearts and prayers go out to him.
Yeah, we echo that and send our love to Andrew and his entire family. Thank you, Richard. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm thinking that 1-0 isn't quite enough. You know, I kind of think I was going to say 2-0. Raf's already had 3-0. Go on, I'm going to have to go 4-0 then. We did 7 last year. So listen, it isn't out of the question. It isn't out of the question, is it? Come on. Igor Jesus is going to score. Igor Jesus is going to
a goal. Oh, he deserves a goal. He deserves a league goal.
He does. So you heard it here first, folks. Right, we're wrapping up. We loved Malmo. We're looking forward to Brighton. The feel-good factor's back. Igor Jesus is going to score. Come on, you ready?
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.